All right, so we've got we just did our movies, hopes and fears segment for 2025. Now we're going to jump over into the TV shows. These are like the movie section. These are four TV shows that we've selected beforehand that we're interested in, that we feel like are they're just good talking points for whether we're more hopeful or more fearful for these shows going into it this year. Um, and we'll kind of discuss, obviously, why that is as we get into it. But we're just going to kind of jump right in since you already kind of get the format from our last video. But before we do, if you enjoy what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, share. Um, Let us know what you think about these videos. Let us know if you're hopeful or fearful about these, and let's discuss that a little bit because I think that's where the real fun happens. And um, but yeah, without further ado, we're going to jump right into our TV shows. And our first one's going to be, I think, probably the most anticipated show this year. That's why I kind of wanted to start with this one because I think of all the things coming out, I can't think of one that's going to be more people are going to be more excited about seeing than this one. I think we're what was it 2 years ago that Stranger Things 4 released, or was it 3 years? I lose
It's a
track because
long time.
they
Yeah.
space them out a whole lot. I'll look that up. Yeah, this is just one that um, I mean it's this is saying May 27th, 2022. So two it'll be about 3 years by the time
Okay.
this one by the last season. So yeah, the running joke is that all these early high school characters are going to look like they're in their mid 20s by the time this show ends. And I think if you've ever seen any of the funny memes of them, looking like they're in their 30s or 40s when season 6 or 7 or whatever comes out, because they're supposed to be like young high school kids, and by this point, all these actors are probably early to mid 20s at the youngest. So but anyway, uh, Stranger Things. This is about as horror as I go. I don't do a lot of horror. Um, Anyone who watches enough of our videos knows that, especially on our Halloween specials. But yeah, I really enjoy this show. I would say it's the sufficient comparison to some of the shows from the '80s, like The Goonies and ET and things of that nature, to where they sort of capture that vibe and give us just really interesting sort of other world sort of horror aspects to it. I thought season 4 was probably the strongest season since season 1 of the show. I don't know how you feel about that personally, but I'm going to just lead it off by saying I'm definitely more hopeful for this show because I think these guys have a track record, the Duffer Brothers, of just making good content with this universe, and I think that's until they don't, I'd continue to back them and say that it's going to be good. So I'm curious to see how they wrap things up and kind of tie some of these threads together for the final season. But yeah, I guess where are you at on this one?
Man, it's hard for me to even formulate an opinion on this series because, like you said, it's been almost 3 years since the last one came. Like, I legitimately have to go back and watch all of them.
Oh, we're gonna have to binge them all. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
I think maybe that's a video idea. Is maybe because I don't know if you guys have done Stranger Things, but maybe we do like a watch along series where we leading up to Stranger Things where we watch all of the episodes as a group and kind of discuss. Might be
Yeah,
something
I
we
mean, I know all of us watch them as far as I know. I know Schultz does, and I do. I think Drew does. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll. I mean, we're definitely going to do reviews on it when the new season comes out. I don't know if we'll, obviously fitting that in, whether we could do any watch longs. But that would be, especially with the first season or two, that'd be a lot of fun to kind of dive into
yeah.
back into that a little bit.
But I don't know. I believe this is supposed to be the last one, and they're probably going to do like a part one and part on this, where like part one comes out, and then like 6 months later, part two comes out. Kind of drag it along.
That's basically how Netflix has been doing all their shows lately. It's kind of irritating, but
Yeah. But I I don't know. It's much like the Mission Impossible kind of opinion that I have, where it's hard to wrap up something that has been so long in the making, and the characters are developing, and fans being happy about kind of how it ends. Um, with it being 3 years, I do think that the brothers are really really good at their writing and the storytelling that they do with this series. And I do think that the series is good, or the final season is going to be good. Um, I'm just fearful that it's been so long that one, you've lost fan interest, and then two, um, to bring those fans back, what are they going to do? Um, and for that, that's why I kind of have a little hesitation with this. But I'm excited to watch it. Definitely going to watch it. I'm just fearful as the result, with it being so long since the last one came out.
yeah, and I think if since they've had three, 3 years should be plenty long enough to write a satisfying conclusion, you know, and I think you look at it and you go, obviously there's a lot of apprehension that you can make this satisfying, and I feel like probably more shows fail at having a satisfying ending than succeed, and so I think that's tricky, and especially something that's like this. It's been such a, I think, a phenomenon worldwide for a while. You just kind of, I think there's that natural fear, but I would say because of their track record, because of the quality so far that we've had, I'm definitely hopeful. Did you give an official? Were you more hopeful or fearful? I don't know if you gave
Fearful.
a
I'm fearful on this one.
okay,
But like
okay,
I'm on the fence. Like I'm hopeful that I know that the season is going to be good. Like I know the show is going to be good. I'm just fearful in the sense that it's been so long that you've lost a lot of fan interest for the series. Um, like I said, I know that just because I know the brothers are really good at writing and really good at the storytelling that they make is amazing. But I don't know.
yeah, I get that, and I think that's a it's a valuable. I think it's the word escapes me that I was wanting to use. That's a it makes sense that you'd feel that way. I think that's kind of where we're at with it is definitely somewhere in that realm. So, um, but yeah, sorry, train of thought just completely left me there. So I had to like reset myself. Um, but yeah, um, I guess we'll just jump right into the next one. It's going to be Daredevil Born Again. Um, I'm going to go ahead and do this because this is where I'm firmly at. No, no messing around. Um, for those who have seen enough of this channel, you'll know that I am a massive Daredevil TV show fan. It's probably my absolute favorite um, Marvel thing. Um, I mean, outside of maybe some of the earlier Sam Raimi Spider-Mans that I grew up on, I don't know that there's really anything that I enjoy more than this TV show in terms of Marvel. So I am firmly in the fear camp here because this is something that I think probably might have been better left alone. Um, I think when you do as well as this show did um, across 3 seasons, and then you try to bring it back within the current MCU with the current state of things, and you're doing it without any of the original creators from the first 3 seasons, that's just popping up all sorts of red flags for me. Um, there was a little bit of good news at one point where they had supposedly filmed like 6 episodes, and they brought them to the higher ups at Marvel and showed it to them, and Marvel's like, this isn't good enough, you need to scratch it and start over. And they went and got new writers, they got new, I think, directors, and try it again. So I think that's hopefully a good thing that they saw what they had and it wasn't up to par, and now they're trying to rethink things a little bit. Um, but yeah, I'm fearful. I don't think there's really much else, any other direction to go but down from the first three seasons. I know this is supposed to be a somewhat sequel to those, but it's in reality, it's probably going to be more of a reboot in a lot of ways. So, yeah, I'm scared to death that this is going to be awful, and I don't trust Marvel slash Disney to do the original show any justice here.
And I was worried about we were going to agree on everything. I'm hopeful for this one, um, not because I think that they will be able to be at the same level as the original series. I think I'm already going in knowing that it's not going to be as good, just because the first part, I guess is what you would call it, of this was so good. I mean, like I probably watched the original Daredevil TV series like 3 or 4 times, over and over again, and I love it. It's one of my favorite, I guess, superhero TV shows. I'm hopeful for the sole fact that when they started making this, they 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 saw, like you said, 6 episodes in and said this isn't up to the standard, and redid it, right? And the fact that a studio has the, I guess, awareness to be able to do that with this series, leaves me hopeful that the product is going to be at least somewhat, around the same level as the original. So
And
that's
I
what I'm
don't
hoping.
expect it to be as good. Like, I don't think there's any way they reach that sort of. I mean, it's kind of like how people feel about, the original Star Wars trilogy and how everyone's from that point on is always comparing everything Star Wars to that, and you're never going to be able to reach it. Um, but you want it to just be competent, like a Rogue One was competent or a Andor was competent. You want it to be something that's really well done and really enjoyable, even if it doesn't live up to the original. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for, but I just don't. Looking at the people working on it, I mean, the two guys that they've got direct or producing it are guys who worked on uh, Moon Knight and Loki, like those two shows that are, not awful, but they're not, like that's not the type of people that I want work. Like, I wish they'd have said, look, throw however much money you have to at Drew Goddard, who's the original creator of the original three seasons of the show, to get him to come back to do it, because um, that would have been the only case where I was just like, yes, let's go. Um, I'm glad they kept all the original actors, and that they're bringing. Originally, they weren't going to bring back Karen or Foggy, and then they decided to bring those two actors back. Who, really, to me, the show doesn't work without those two in the dynamic as well, because those three, them and Matt Murdock, they they just have so much chemistry together throughout those three seasons that without those two, it would feel like, a lot less like Daredevil. And you know, you also fall into the thing, I think, with this season where you're using the same villain in Kingpin, which is fantastic. Like, Vincent D'Onofrio does amazing in that role. But I think you're going to get to the point with his character where how many times can we do a season of Daredevil with the same villain and a similar premise? Um, to where they did it season one, they did it in season three. Those are the two strongest seasons of Daredevil, but it's like, how many times can we keep playing this scenario out? So I think they're going to need to do something more with the villain to make Kingpin just an aspect of that and not the entire, maybe not the entire thing. Um, because I think you can't just keep revisiting the same um, sort of conflict between the two characters over and over again, because you kind of reached the precipice of that, like the peak of that with season three, where you kind of explored a lot of, really all that you could to a certain degree with those two characters and their sort of rivalry with each other. So I'll be interested. Like I'm interested, and we're going to review it on this channel 100%. It's coming out in March. I'm excited to have Charlie Cox's Daredevil back on screen, but I'm just so fearful that it's going to be terrible. I think that's just where I'm at with it.
I hope that if they do decide to bring Daredevil, and I don't know quite if he's, and I might be completely off base here. I don't know if he's quite a, not saying MCU, but like movie, like Avengers type of superhero. Like he seems more of like a, I don't know, New York. I don't know if that makes sense. A New York superhero.
He's more of a Batman, yeah, Batman, where it's like, how do you make Batman work with Superman and all these high powered individuals? It's he. I would love it if he made his way into an Avengers movie, and like if Hawkeye and Black Widow can do it, that he could work in that with as a non-power superpower character. But they would have to. It would be very interesting to see how they did that. But I think they may try.
Well, and if they do that, then Charlie Cox has to be the Daredevil. Like
Absolutely. He
they're
is he is Daredevil. There is no other. Sorry.
yeah. I mean Ben Affleck was okay, but like Charlie Cox is it's much like Grant from The Flash for me. Like he's the Flash,
Yeah.
right? Like that. Um, I just I don't know. I'm just excited about it. Again, this is probably my favorite or one of my top two favorite superhero TV shows, and I'm just excited for it to be back. Could it be terrible? Absolutely, but I lean on the hopeful side that it's not going to be.
Well, I am hoping that you're right, even if I'm more fearful. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, let's jump into three. I couldn't find a poster for season two of The Last of Us, so I just grabbed the poster from season one. But we are specifically talking about The Last of Us season two, which I feel like is coming out like either this month or next month.
I think
Let
it's
me
next
look it up.
month.
It's, it's soon. I remember seeing something about it on HBO or something. But I'll double check. Um, it is. It just said this is saying early 2025. Have they not set a release for it yet? 5 days ago, it's just still saying spring 2025. So I guess they don't have a release date for it.
It'll probably end up being like April or something.
Yeah. Okay, then. So we don't really know. So The Last of Us is based off of the video game of the same name. The first season essentially is the first game of The Last of Us. Very close to it, really well adapted, looks amazing as all HBO things tend to look. Um, for the most part, I think, like I said, this is another Pedro Pascal dilemma where I think he looks like Joel, but he doesn't act or sound like Joel from the games as much. Um, but I think he does a fine job. I have no issues with him in the show. It's well written, it's well acted. It has the same beats, similar beats as the game does, although the game is a lot creepier and a lot more tense. I feel like in you see a lot more of the infected in the game than you do in the show, which I hope they show more of the infected in season two. But I have also not played The Last of Us Part Two, the second game of the series. I've only heard of what other people have said about it. Hopefully, I'll get to pick it up eventually. But I would say because of the controversial nature of the plot in season or in The Last of Us Part Two, the game, I think there's probably a lot of people with this show that because they know where it's headed, they're not necessarily as interested in season two as they were in season one. Do I think it'll be well adapted? Yeah, I think they'll do a good job. I'm afraid that the narrative of part two of the game is just not near as strong as the first game, and I think that's going to bring down uh, the story some, and they may decide to change it a little bit. I don't know, but you obviously have the controversial um, plot point in the second game of killing off Joel's character. What first part of the game, pretty
Yeah.
much. At least that's what I've heard, and like he's the main character essentially in the first game. So you play from his perspective almost the entire game, except for a couple sequences sort of near the end with Ellie. But that's kind of where I'm at. Is like I hate the way they handled it in the game, and I that makes me less inclined to want to see it on screen in a TV show as well. So, and that's really a big reason why I've never picked the game up, because I'm just like, do I really want to see that? Uh, like one of the most well received video games of all time, but the first Last of Us game. Do I really want to see them sort of, you know, butcher the how good the first one was? But the best critique I've heard from the second game is that like the gameplay is really fun, and like the game's pretty fun to play from that perspective. It's just not like narratively people really didn't like it. So when you switch that over to TV show, it's like, you don't have gameplay in TV
Yeah.
shows, so it's it's not sounding great. So I'm definitely more on the fearful side here. I think it'll be well made. I just don't think people are going to care enough, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna be with you on the fearful side. My biggest gripe about the first season, which I thought was a good show, was exactly what you said, which was like you didn't really see any infected people at all. Like you could almost have taken the show and it just been a dystopian show without any aspect of the infected, and it still would have worked, right? You look at
Yeah,
like The Walking Dead, for example, like that shows kind of the, I guess, the bar for when you're talking about zombie TV shows,
like
right?
zombie. Yeah, like the aesthetic of the
Yeah.
zombies and how creepy and how gory and everything it is. Yeah, they do
But
good with
also
that.
but also like the storytelling, right? Where like the zombies aren't the main focus of Walking Dead, but they're there, and you know that that
Yeah,
looming threat is always there, right? Whereas in the first season, that wasn't the case as far as The Last of Us. And I know that it was the first season. They're trying to set up everything. They're setting up character dynamics and all of that. Um, for this one, the second season, I I don't really know how you can build on that in relation to if you're setting up the story, right? And that takes all season one is to set up the characters and set up the story. And The Last of Us at part two, the video game, you kill off the main character. Well, now you just wasted a whole season to set up a story of a character that you're going to kill off the next season, right? Like it, I don't know. Obviously, I'll watch it. Um, I I like this genre of movies and TV shows, the zombie infected dystopian, style, right? I like this genre, but I don't really know how you build upon the first season unless you just completely go away from the video games and just go do your own thing.
I was about to say, what do you think the odds are that they, because there's a in the from the first game to the second game, there's a decent little time jump of probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. Do you think there's a possibility that they decide to explore some things in between those two games, and sort of string this out to maybe avoid the letdown of part two's plot, and maybe get a little bit more longevity out of the show? Because honestly, I think that'd be a smarter move on their part, is maybe to go do their own thing. Maybe make the season two more carnage based, like more infected. Because like from the trailer, you're definitely going to see more infected. You're going to see there's like a horde of infected in one sequence, and um, so I think it would be interesting to see if they decide to do that. But like I said, I also haven't played the second game, so I don't know of all the clips they showed from the trailer, if all of that is from the second game or if it's some of it's different. Because someone who has played it would probably be able to tell me, yeah, all of those scenes are right out of the second game. That's probably what we're getting. I recognize some of the sequences from the second game, but I also just from clips I've seen. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if they would try to do something like that, or if they're just going to say, "Look, this is just the second game. We're finishing the story. This is it." Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting to see if they decide to do something like that.
I think that the smart thing for the studio to do would be not to kind of explore that story, right? Like not the 4 to or explore the 4 to 5 years, however long the setting is, and it really allows you, if this season goes well, to continue to make seasons, knowing right that you have that endpoint in part two. So like you can make 5 or 6 seasons going through those 4 to 5 years that are like in between the two games, knowing that in the back pocket, let's say the studio, the it's not well received. Well, you have the last season already written for you, right? It's already ready to go. You already have the plot there for you. So it just depends on whether or not the studio is going to want to continue. Because I don't think you can kill off Pedro Pascal's character next season. Now, another interesting aspect to this, right, that I was thinking about, Pedro Pascal's now kind of got MCU requirements, right? As
Hmm.
far as he's not going to just do Fantastic Four. Reed Richards is going to be a big part of the next, I
Yeah,
guess, area.
usually they sign on for multiple movies. Yeah.
How much time is he going to have to do a TV series? Um,
Yep.
so, I mean, maybe we do see them kill off his character and try to go from there, right? With The Last of Us. But I just don't know how much Pedro Pascal is going to be able to do with his MCU, you know, obligations upcoming.
Yep. That's a good point. And I think that's been the case with a lot of actors who are like, yeah, when I was part of the MCU, I basically didn't do anything else because I didn't have time. And that's because if you're filming inside of a phase of Marvel, you may not be appearing in your own movie, but you're appearing in an Avengers movie or you're appearing in one of the other superheroes movies. And so, yeah, I would imagine you're probably right to where he's going to be very tied up. And I would not be shocked at all if this one's just straight adaptation of part two, for better or for worse. I'm curious. I'll be interested to watch it in that regard because I know aspects of what happens in part two, but I don't really know how a lot of that unfolds. And so it'll be kind of fun for me to watch it from the perspective of never playing part two of the game. Whereas when I watched season one, I played the game years ago, and so I knew like what was going to happen and how it was going to happen. So I think it'll be fun, even though I know sort of the more disappointing aspects of the plot. I don't really know how the rest of it plays out, and so I'd be really interested to see it from that perspective. So that's at least something in my regard. But um, yeah, let's jump over to our last one here, and it's going to be Andor. I also could not find the poster for season two, so I just found this really cool colored poster. I guess from season one. Um, I'm going to go ahead and drop mine in here, and I'm going to explain why. But
You can put
I
mine on
am,
there too.
yeah, you are. So we've had discussions about this show um, on this channel, and this I've told people. I think it was we haven't really gotten to it in our Star Wars consensus rankings because we're not quite to where this one's ranked yet. We haven't made it that far into it. We still got like the top 14 that we have to do, but I love this show. Um, it is different than anything we've gotten to this point, Star Wars wise. It's its own thing, very much in that regard. Um, it's very much more of a gritty, character driven, I would say adult in the sense of like kids are not really going to find it interesting because it's very dialogue driven and very slow paced. Um, But the reason this show works is because of the people behind it. And I think when you look at all the successful things in the MCU or in Star Wars or uh, across different mediums of entertainment, you can always go back to who's directing it, who's writing it, who's producing it, and you can trace a line and say, okay, if these people are involved, it's probably going to be a quality product. And so um, when we look at Andor and we look at Tony Gilroy, who, and I'm going to, this is something that is a misconception, and I think I've said it on videos before, but Gareth Edwards gets the credit for making Rogue One. Um, and um, when you see that movie, his name's always attached to it primarily. Um, what some people, maybe a lot of people don't know, I don't know for certain the amount of people, but and Tony Gilroy revealed a lot of this in some of his interviews. But he actually, when they parted ways with Gareth Edwards before Rogue One was even finished, they brought Tony Gilroy in, and he essentially reshot the majority of the movie and rewrote a lot of it. I know they probably used certain sequences from it, but he he essentially made an entirely new movie, um, and so he's responsible for the success of Rogue One. And Gareth Edwards, for whatever reason, he gets that credit probably because he worked on it the longest. But Tony Gilroy was responsible for the product that we got on screen. And so when coming into Andor and you see how well this one is made, it doesn't surprise me with Tony Gilroy being the writer, the producer, and I believe director of a lot of it too, that it's as good as it is. And I told people, to me, it's a better product than even Rogue One was because it's more impressive of a work in the sense that it's 12 episodes that are 40 plus minutes long. Compare that to a 2.5 hour Rogue One movie. It's just more impressive that it's as good as it is over 12 episodes with a character that's a secondary character that people don't really, I would say, don't really care that much about. Um, and so, that being said, coming into season two with the same people attached to direct it, they're using the same format of 3 episode arcs like they did in season one. I have no reason to doubt the quality of this show going into season two, and I think that's why I'm firmly in the hope category. And also, it's the only Star Wars project coming out that I am hopeful for and actually excited for. And as a big Star Wars fan, like that's extremely exciting for me.
Yeah, I'll say this about Andor, and I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you're a lot more where I'm more versed in MCU and superheroes. You're a little bit more, or a lot more versed in Star Wars. The first season of Andor was probably the best TV show that Disney has put out for Star Wars since episode or season one of Mandalorian, in my opinion. And
Yeah,
it could be argued it was better than season one of Mandalorian.
I mean, I personally think it is, but that's all. Like I tell people, I'm like they're two totally different shows. They're two totally different styles, and it's really a matter of like Andor is the type of show that's my style of show, a grittier, grounded show, because that's how Daredevil is. That's how trying to think of some other shows, but like Daredevil's very grounded and gritty.
Arrow.
Uh, First few seasons of
Yeah.
Arrow are more like that in a lot of ways. Um, but yeah, so that's the style that I like. And I enjoyed the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, but no, I would have this one over that from a quality perspective and because it's just the style more. It's more serious, more um, dialogue driven. Not that I'm for more dialogue driven over other things. I just for like quality entertainment. But yeah, this is definitely to me. I would have it over The Mandalorian, but that's a very subjective uh, opinion. So
Well, Mandalorian season one. I think Mandalorian fell off a little bit after season one, but um, in a lot of for people that have listened to me on this previously, not just with Andor, but in general, character development is a big thing for me. Um, Having a succinct kind of, okay, this is this character, these are the tendencies that this character is going to have, like this is how, like, oh, they're approaching this situation, you kind of already know what the character is going to do, being that they spent time in developing that. And I think that this is what the writers for Andor have done extremely well, is building this type of character that you as an audience can kind of understand, and know, oh, we're going into this situation, well, they're going to behave exactly like this, and have that type of expectation. Um, the only thing that would worry me a little bit, and you do see it from time to time with successful shows and successful movies with sequels, which is the writers and the directors kind of rest on their laurels and say, oh, well, we had this successful, this successful season, we're going to do it exactly the exact same, not introduce anything new, and making the plot kind of stale, which is the only thing I'm kind of concerned about. But I am hopeful for this one.
Well, and with you saying that, obviously, like you said, I probably followed the ins and outs a little bit more of these behind the scenes production of the Star Wars stuff than you might. But what's interesting about season two is Tony Gilroy's already confirmed that, with season one, you had 12 episodes, and each episode was kind of a mini arc inside of the overall arc, but it took place within like a span of months. All the episodes did, or weeks, or whatever it is. Um, and it was about 5-ish years before the events of Rogue One, maybe 4. I can't remember the exact amount, but but with season two, he's already come out and said, season two is going to be the same 3 episode arcs of 12 episodes total, but with each 3 episodes, they're going to cover longer spans of time and also have a 1 year time jump in between each 3 episodes. And so the one thing that they're shifting to last from first season to second season is, whereas first season it was a slow burn all the way through 12, where it was only telling a few months worth of things. Now we're going to, hey, we're going to go faster pace. We're going to have, probably more action, um, more bigger events happening in the rebellion, because they're wanting to make it to where the end of the show is going to, the way he phrased it was, when you end season two, it's going to immediately want to make you watch Rogue One, because it's going to lead right up to it. And so we're going to cover about 3 to 4, maybe 5 years from where season two starts to where Rogue One starts. And so, sorry, where season one ended to where Rogue One starts. And so, um, I think the feel is going to be a little different in the pacing. I think it's going to be faster paced. And I think that's not a bad thing, considering one of the biggest critiques of season one was that it was just so slow at times. Um, but I do think they're going to take all the good stuff that they built on, all these good character developments that they made in season one, and now take it and ramp everything up. And I think that's why I'm extremely excited, because I think it's going to feel more like a Star Wars, like an epic event, because they're going to have more of these things happening, and but still with the same great writing, the same great characters. And so in that respect, I'm really excited to see where they go with it. And all the things the actors have been saying, uh, that Gilroy's been saying, it sounds like they are being very intentional to make sure that they stick the landing. And so I'm nothing but hopeful for this show. So, well, I think that's all we got for these. And for those of you that stuck around to watch, thank y'all for watching, for listening, whatever you do. Thank you for supporting the channel. And like I said, we're excited for 2025, what that's going to bring. Lots of fun movies, lots of fun shows, like we've talked about, ones we haven't even talked about here. Um, and so as we jump into that, we look forward to conversing with y'all. So please comment and share what you think about these, and we will see y'all later.